Hey, good afternoon. Happy Sunday. I hope you all are doing well today. We are back with another commentary for the Blind Gamers Arcade Summer Special 2023. And today's commentary is going to revolve around a couple of things like accessibility and my thoughts on Alpha Mission 2. So, we had some pretty big changes happen with the channel. Something that I had been working on for quite some time and stuff, and I had asked about it, but I wasn't really sure how to go about doing it. And so, I'm a disabled human being. I am legally blind. Completely blind in my left, almost completely blind in my right. I have bilateral lattice degeneration as well as a damaged visual cortex. Long story short, I have structural damage to my eyes, and then to make matters worse, my brain does not process visual data correctly most of the time, leaving me in a blurred state. So this defines a very large portion of my life. I find that I have to work around a lot of things quite a bit, especially with gaming, getting from point A to point B, basic navigation, reading things, going and trying to do things. Like, when you go and you lose your vision and stuff, it becomes a very haphazard existence. I think some things work, some things don't. So, as a disabled person, sometimes with the way that America is and the amount of, I guess, bullshit that you have to put up with in American society, you kind of forget about other disabled people. And so, as I go and I do these videos, I kind of sit here and it's like, okay, well, obviously I'm trying to tailor the experience to me so I could actually go and be able to do these games, to be able to produce them and stuff and release these videos. And as a side effect, I sometimes forget about other disabled folks. So the channel overhaul, starting with this video, is that we now have closed captions as well as subtitles. I don't really think about closed captions or subtitles that often. As like a blind human being, I have a lot of digital aids to help me listen to videos and stuff, and those digital aids for the most part do a pretty good job. I'm able to bridge it with technology. And so I had asked on Twitter, I was like, hey guys, should we do subtitles? Should we do closed captions? And I had been pondering it for a while, because I don't really know anything about subtitles or closed captions. And when I first started making these videos, the setup that I was using at the time sure as hell did not support subtitles or closed captions. But with some app updates and stuff, I am actually able to have access to transcript text. And what this allows me to do is at the time of uploading, I can sit there and say, hey, I have this transcript text, we can go and make closed captions out of it and subtitles if we want. And then some things I'm sure for the closed captions segment of it, some things I'm sure I'm going to have to manually add, but it's pretty much a surefire bet for subtitles. And so everybody voted yes. The vote happened on here and on Twitter. As far as I'm aware, down here didn't really get any votes, but over on Twitter, there was a few, which is really nice. And so everybody voted yes. So starting with this video, we're going to be using the transcript text to make subtitles. This will actually keep the subtitles accurate and stuff. Now, regarding the other videos, they will be using automatic subtitles. And the reason for this is because I do not have access to transcript text for all of the older videos. I didn't have access to it via app. Like, I literally had no real way of acquiring any of it, really. And so what was going on is I was like, okay, I know that I want to do subtitles. People want subtitles. Let's go ahead and do this. So for the older videos from like 2018 all the way up to late 2023, there are going to be automatic subtitles. I went ahead and I checked it out. For some reason, automatic subtitles have been available on YouTube for quite some time, but they were disabled on my channel. I do not know why. I have never seen them before. I've never played around with them. I wasn't even aware that they were there until doing a little bit of research. And so for older videos, that's how subtitles are going to be handled. For the newer videos, subtitles will be made via transcript text. And so from now on, whenever I do a commentary like this, I'm not only going to retrieve the recording from the app I use, I'm also going to retrieve the transcript text, and at the time of upload, it will be added. I asked a few of my friends that are a little bit hard of hearing what they thought. I felt that, it was important to include them in the decision making as well, because it's important to try to make content accessible for everybody. Not generally to get more views or anything like that, but because I want people to have like a good experience and I want things to be accessible for them. And so they came back and they were like, yes, we think it's a good idea. Not a lot of people really cater to the deaf. And so it would be nice to be able to go and be able to experience a video and actually be able to keep up with it, because visual only goes so far. When you can't really hear things, you can't really get full enjoyment out of it. So I said, you know what, I can get behind that. And so now there's going to be a commentary done. The transcript text is going to be pulled as well before the recording is deleted from the recorder app. And as a consequence of this, all of the commentary audio files as well as the transcript texts are going to be logged in various folders. And they're going to be backed up in case I ever have to do this again, because if I go and just post the video, I could always rely on auto subtitles, but auto subtitles are not always accurate, and it would just be better to go and hold on to the transcript text. The transcript text is not very large. It really makes no sense to not hold on to it, and so that is pretty much what we are going to be doing moving forward. All of the other videos are going to have, when I can get around to it, they're going to have better captions put into place. The closed caption system does an okay job, but it is not perfect. I would have to say it's about a good solid 93%, but that other 7% really leaves a lot to be desired. And so I would like to actually go back and work on it. And I have intent to, at some point at a later date, when I understand better how it functions. So this is the big change that we are going to be going and doing. As a disabled person, apparently a disabled person that can't speak for shit, thanks Aphasia, you are going to run into plenty of content that doesn't have any sort of system in place for you to really get full enjoyment out of it, and I really just did not want my channel to be like that. So I took a vote, I consulted a lot of people, and I figured out how to make it happen. And going forward, I have a system in place where I can sit there and say, if you cannot hear, it is not a problem, we have you covered. And so going forward, we are going to be going and using that. There are other mechanisms in place that I would actually like to go out and try. Apparently, a good portion of my viewers are also dyslexic, and they have problems with the font and the description, so what I would actually like to do is go and start using OpenFont, which is a font that is used for the dyslexic that alternates the structure of every other letter to help make text more readable for those that have dyslexia. And so we're going to be working on that in the future as well. So pardon my dust today. As always, I have a little bit of a noisy household. It's a little bit more quiet than usual, and you're probably going to be hearing the fan in the background because it is a little bit of a warmer day, and I'm kind of sweating like a stuck pig over here. Just a little bit. Summer's definitely approaching. So, with that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and talk about Alpha Mission 2 a fair bit. This cartridge in general was in a dusty old box that was listed with all the other cartridges and stuff. It didn't have a label on it. I didn't have any issues pulling the ROM off of it or anything. It read really easily. It just had a lot of cosmetic damage. And so my first time experiencing it is quite literally on an emulator. I never saw this game at arcades at all, ever. It was mostly a lot of SNK's other heavy hitters like Samurai Showdown, Metal Slug, the classics. Essentially the stuff that you would go and expect from SNK, Top Hunter, So I found that it was actually really refreshing to go and look at this game and be like, hey, I've never played this before. This is going to be a new experience for me. there was a couple of cartridges in the boxes that are going to be giving me new experiences, like Cyberlip and a couple of other ones that I have on hand, but for this game in general, I hadn't played a shmup in quite some time, and I wasn't really sure how well I was going to fare with it. My nephew did a much better job at it than I did, I feel, because when I was going and playing it, the main issue that I was struggling with is I cannot read what is on the pickups, and then a lot of the objects that I am supposed to be dodging, if they're small, they're in such low definition that they just do not register on my vision. So a lot of this particular video was a lot of labor of love, I think. You know, like, I struggled with it, yes, but at the same time I didn't really want to give up on it. So as always, free play was 100% turned on, you know, that way I could just go and keep at it. And given the nature of the game, you know, I essentially had to raw dog it, you know, and so theoretically you can make the argument that, oh, there is no such thing as failure with this. But anybody that has constantly died in a game can openly tell you that it becomes a very frustrating experience because you really feel like, past a certain point, that you're not really doing a very good job at it. You know, and like, I think another thing you kind of struggle with is you kind of feel like you want to be good at the game. You know what I mean? Like, you feel like if you're dying constantly that it's not very entertaining and it creates bad content and yada yada yada. And I had to sit down and realize that, you know, challenge breeds excellence. And I had to temper myself a little bit, you know, because frustration mounts on me very quickly with some things. Especially with the game constantly being stopped because I am dying, you know. Like, the continue screen has always been kind of a point of frustration because I think modern gaming has kind of spoiled me a little bit, where it's like, just go back to the last checkpoint or go back and, you know, here's another life or whatever the case. You know, I think failure in modern games is handled a lot more gently. With arcade games, you know, it's handled very brutally because, well, they're arcade games, essentially. So, part of this video, like, I'd have to say a 50-50, like 50% of it was quite literally frustration, because I know that I have to pick the pickups up, but I couldn't quite tell what they were. My godson would frequently tell me they have numbers on them. I do not know what those numbers mean, and then apparently some of them have letters as well. And I, again, have no idea what the hell those letters mean. So for the duration of the run, I focused on just killing what I could actually make out, and then picking up whatever it was that I could actually go and see. And then learning to tell the difference between enemies and pickups was very strange. So pickups have a tendency to glide down towards you very gently, I noticed, and then enemies are normally really, really aggressive and all over the place. So there was a lot of adaptation, I think, with Alpha Mission 2. And so I don't really think I got the full experience with Alpha Mission 2, you know. My nephew apparently would sit there and say, hey, you know, you can pick multiple ships, and apparently there's other ships that you can go and play as and activate certain abilities for. But the truth of the matter is I have no idea what the hell they do. Like, at all. I just don't. So I literally, I think for the majority of the run that I was going and playing, I literally just kind of raw dogged it with a single ship. If I died, I died. If I had to continue, I continued. But I don't really feel like I got the full experience out of it. I feel like this is one of those games where you have to have full vision to get the full experience out of it, and to understand what it is that you're doing. So in many ways, I kind of played it like I play another shmup that I used to play when I was younger called R-Type. And so I just went through with a single ship, you know, destroyed as much as I could. You know, R-Type, I still play it occasionally, but I don't really play it well anymore, per se. Like, it's not quite like what it was when I was like 9 or 10 years old, you know, where I was planning out what I wanted to use and how I wanted to use it and all that fun stuff. And so I think with Alpha Mission 2, it was kind of a reckoning a little bit. Like, it lets me know that I definitely have limitations and that those limitations can be frustrating. You know, but you can still sit down and you can still play the game and try to enjoy it to the max of your ability, and so it's a little bit of an experience. Now, growing up, I loved shoot-em-ups. They were definitely a staple of my childhood and stuff. I would just kind of sit down and I would play shmups at home, and then we also had a couple of shmups over at the arcades and stuff. And I would just go and I would constantly play them, you know, and you don't really see too many shmups anymore. I mean, they are kind of making a comeback a little bit, but they're not this dominating force anymore that they were in like the late 80s and all the way up to the mid to late 90s, you know, and so it's really refreshing to see them coming back. You know, like this scene right here. Ah, good luck, Jesus. This scene right here where I had to go and select the ship. You know, my godson's literally sitting there saying, "Hey, you gotta pick something," and I was like, "Pick what?" And he's like, "I don't know, pick anything," you know, and so it's a little bit weird. I'm not really sure how the system works and stuff. I think for a lot of the game it was just focusing on trying to dodge whatever projectiles that I could actually go and try to dodge, and then try to kill whatever it is I could kill. Apparently there's like a secondary system in place where I just don't shoot primary projectiles. Apparently I shoot other ones as well. They cater to specific enemy types, but I am unable to tell the mass majority of the enemies apart. So the run literally equates to me just going and hosing tons of ammo all over the place. Whatever hits, hits. Whatever dies, dies. You know, and around this point, you know, my godson had started like trying to go and take over and stuff, and because he wanted to use the quote-quote fun stuff, and so apparently he went ahead and he transformed into something else, and he was going and playing as it, and, you know, having a good time with it and stuff, and, you know, we didn't really swap off too much with this game. Like, I did the majority of the run and stuff, and we didn't really share the experience as much as I really wanted to. You know, like, he played for a little bit, but it wasn't really his bag, you know. He wasn't all over it like all of the other games. You know, so I guess my love of shmups more or less kind of dies with me a fair bit. Yeah, just sitting there just going through it and stuff, and you know, it's kind of difficult. You know, the color palette I think is kind of hard to stare at because it's like a lot of greens and a lot of blues. You know, and it makes it kind of hard to differentiate things. You know, some projectiles I notice kind of have like a dull red hue to them and stuff, and so I'm able to see them a little bit, but a lot of the blue projectiles that are shot out, they have a tendency to blend in the back against the background and stuff, and then like this one right here wasn't like too hard for me to identify because it's like solid red on a blue background, and so at that point it kind of becomes a case of, okay, just dodge the blob. But even dodging, I find, isn't really super successful because some projectiles are so small that they blend in with my vision, so I'll literally go to dodge one and then I'll run into another. And it's not really that great, or at least I personally don't think it's that great. So, but I think with this particular line of long plays where it's like a blind person going and tackling these games, I think that there's going to be a lot of points to be made, you know. And there's going to be a lot of limitations, you know, that, you know, you're going to run into, and I find that the biggest aspect of beating these games is not so much actually beating them, it's dealing with frustration. Like, just generalized frustration, not generally rage, you know? Like, I don't go and get, like, super mad and, like, throw my controller and storm out of the room and all that stuff, but I definitely get frustrated with it, and sometimes I have to sit down and say, hey, you know, well, not so much say, but ask, hey, you know, why am I doing this? More or less. You know, and you have to remind yourself, I think, a fair bit on why you're going and working on things, and you know, so you have to ask the question, you know, why am I doing this? Am I doing this to try to be good at it? Am I doing this to prove a point? You know, like, why am I here? Exactly. And the reasoning that I came to was, I'm here to show people that, yes, it can be done. And so for a lot of these shmups and stuff, even though I struggle with them very hard, you know, as you're going to see with later shmups as well, this is not the only one that railed my ass straight through the floor. You have to be persistent with it. You have to be willing to keep coming back, and you have to be willing to go and just keep coming back to go and actually achieve it. This particular game in general, this was not my first run. I think this was like my 10th or 11th run. And the problem that I would have is I would die compulsively because some of the patterns blend in with the background with being blues and greens, some projectiles I couldn't see. It was just a lot of things that, I literally just could not go and reckon with, so I would have to go, and a lot of this had to be committed to memory. And so what would wind up happening is I would go and have to do run after run after run to literally go and have some monochrome of skill, and then a lot of it, even afterwards, is still just me raw dogging it. So this run was literally about as good as it was ever going to get, and so I just kind of sat down for a while, and I was like, okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to keep doing this, we're going to keep moving on and grooving on, and we're going to have a lot of persistence for this. And, you know, I couldn't really afford to stop with it, I couldn't really afford to get frustrated with it, because I find that when you get frustrated with the game, you start to give up, you know, and giving up just sucks. I find that a lot of people go ahead and give up these days and stuff, and so as an end result, nothing ever gets finished, you know, and, you know, they essentially quit, you know, and so I had to adopt the mentality of, you know, it only stops when I go and make the choice to stop, you know, and that was pretty much how that was. In many ways, I'm actually kind of grateful that I've been going and doing these long plays and stuff for various arcade games, because I feel like it's actually been healthy to me, to a certain extent. You know, like, I find that it helps me grow a fair bit and stuff, and I'm actually very, very grateful for that, because I think a lot of people kind of fail to leave their comfort zone sometimes. Like, they kind of get trapped in this hole of self-pity a little bit. They kind of go and they look at like what they can and can't do, and they measure what they can't do against what they can do, and they're never really quite satisfied with it. A large portion of my growth has literally been going and learning to say fuck you. Yes, you heard that right, fuck you. I find that you kind of have to these days. You know, you go through life and stuff, and you're going to have moments where you just don't really, you know, feel like that you can hack it and stuff, that you don't feel like you can do it. Maybe you lose a limb, or maybe you lose a sense, or maybe you accrue some nerve damage and you're not able to do things as effectively, but I find that when you focus on it a lot, like, it's good to realize it, right? But I find that when you focus on it a lot, it can be very demoralizing to a certain lesser extent. So I've had to adopt the mentality of fuck it and fuck you, more or less. A lot of people kind of laugh at it a little bit, you know, they're like, that is very crass, Rain. And it is. But I have learned that if I don't learn to say fuck it or fuck you to anything, none of this would really happen, because I would literally just kind of keep sinking into that pit and stuff. There would really be no escape from it, you know, and then it would be easy at that point to literally wallow in self-pity. So a large portion of going and making these videos has literally me having to say fuck it. You know, like, there's a lot of reservations I think that people have when they go and they make content. They have a tendency to tell themselves, well, ask themselves, there's a lot of what ifs. What if people don't like it? What if I don't do it well? What if, you know, like, what if has a tendency to ruin a lot of things, I think. So the big thing with me is I've had to literally learn to say fuck it, you know. What if the game isn't as, what if it's not done as well, you know, as everybody else? Fuck it, do it anyways. Enjoy it, you know, enjoy what you've done, you know. Oh, well, Rain, what happens if you go and you do commentary and, like, you're not really speaking, you know, clearly that day, and, you know, it doesn't come out as good as you want it to, or maybe you're just having, like, a really bad day that day. Fuck it, do it anyways. Literally. Adopting the mentality of fuck it literally is a process of realization, and making the choice to do it anyways. When I go and I make these videos, a lot of the times I have to literally sit there and say fuck it. You know, it's not going to be like everybody else's stuff. Okay, that's fine. it may not be the best gameplay. Okay, that's also fine. Fuck it, I want to do it anyways. You know, you do things because you can, and if you can, you do. You know, that's how that is. It may not be like everybody else's stuff, but it does make a statement that you can actually go and still make the choice to do it if you work on it and work at it, you know, hard enough. You know, if you have a drive to do it, you're gonna do it. You know, that's just how that is. So when I started the SNK collection, like all these games, I had like a lot of reservations because like with console games, you know, there's save points. You know, they're not as intensive and stuff, and you know, you can kind of plan them out a little bit. With arcade games, they're more in your face. You know, they don't really give a shit. You're gonna die a lot, you're gonna take a lot of damage. You know, you're not always going to be at your best, and I think that when I had started working on this particular series, I literally just had to say, fuck it, we're gonna do it anyways. And then with my speech issues, you know, going and doing commentary, I had to literally sit down and say, okay, to hell with it, we're just gonna do it anyways. Fuck it, we'll do it live, you know, and it's been a very interesting process, to say the least, and over that time, you know, I've had plenty of realizations, you know, like I think as a content creator and stuff, you kind of have to sit down at some point and you realize that you're not going to be for everybody. And I think it's incredibly liberating when you sit there and you say to yourself, okay, I'm not going to be for everybody, and that's okay. And then, of course, you know, with the internet being the internet, you're going to run across people that have fucked up comments as well. And I have learned, strangely enough, to be comfortable with those fucked up comments. Not generally comfortable with the content of it, but comfortable with saying, okay, this person obviously is having an off day, or maybe they're just an asshole. Don't even worry about the comment, just go in and just kindly remove it. You know, that's all you have to do. You don't have to argue the point. You don't have to go and debate about it. You can just literally go and say, hey, this wasn't really that great, and then you can just go and remove it. So a lot of this, you know, when you go and do it, you have to carry the fuck it mentality. You have to really be willing to go and realize a bunch of things. You know, you kind of have to thicken up a little bit and stuff, you know, like not everybody's going to sit there and be like, hey, you know, this was the best thing ever. You're going to also get a lot of people that compare you to other people. There's a lot of ways that you can literally go and deal with this. Some people view it as flattery. Other people view it as an insult, depending on whether or not that person is a decent human being, you know. And so I, like, whenever I get people that go and, like, try to compare me to other people and stuff, I don't really think too much of it. Like, I don't really take it as an insult or a compliment. I just kind of say, oh, okay, and, you know, that's pretty much it for me. But, you know, this is pretty much the growth that literally has had to take place during the entire time that I've been doing commentaries and long plays and everything else. Like, I know what I want to do with it. You know, like, I know what I want to do with it. I have the method down pat for the most part. It's still changing, but it's not changing as rapidly as it was when I first started. And, like, I know what direction I want to go in. And now I think as a content creator, it's more about going and being comfortable with going in that direction and just learning to accept a couple of hard truths and stuff. And so a lot of these videos are very liberating because I feel that they help me grow as a human being a fair bit. And growth is important. It's okay to grow. You never really want to sit there and be stagnant. You know, like being stagnant's actually a really awful way to go and live your life. You know, and it's always good to be growing and expanding and changing, and you know, that's just how you stay viable, I think, especially in today's day and age. You know, like there's some days like I go and a lot of people ask me, they're like, oh, why don't you ever write up a script for your commentaries, you know, like everybody else goes and writes up scripts for their commentaries and stuff, you know, when they go and do like video essays and things like that. Why don't you? And I had a lot of time to sit down and think about it, I guess. Like, I was kind of sitting there doing my thing, and I was like, you know, I don't do any sort of script because I don't like things feeling like they're heavily rehearsed. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't really feel that great. I like to do all my recordings in one take. My recordings are not done in a bunch of chunks. I like to do all my commentary recordings in one take. I don't like those in a bunch of chunks. Like, I like things to feel as organic as possible. And so some would literally go and they would argue the point, well, you know, maybe it would come off as sloppy. And, you know, I get that. Like, I understand where the hell they're coming from with that. I'm not even going to try to bullshit around with it, but at the same time, I feel like when you go and you rehearse something heavily, it kind of feels like it loses authenticity. Like, I kind of feel like when I go and I rehearse things, or if I go and, like, write a script per se, I go and I look at it, and it's just kind of like, oh, okay, well, you know, this seems kind of problematic, let's go ahead and weed it out, or this isn't, you know, super duper amazing, let's go ahead and weed it out. Like, when you go and, like, you rehearse things, and when you go and make scripts and stuff, it feels less authentic to me, I think. Like, I would rather go, right? I would rather go do a recording where I die a lot versus constantly snip and edit and throw it together and try to plagiarize it, I guess, as this perfect thing when it's anything but. And I think that's kind of the illusion of YouTube a little bit. Like, a lot of people that go and work on their content, they're like, it's got to be perfect, it's got to be this, it's got to be that, and the editing for my videos, for the most part, is incredibly minimal. It's like I normally snip the ends, of course, because I don't want any overhang. But past that snipping, there's no cuts. It's one solid recording from start to finish. The only time that I ever had to adjust was for Resident Evil 3, and that's because I ran into a glitch. I didn't want to throw away like 4 hours worth of work. And so I edited out the glitch, did a real quick transition, but all of my other videos are literally just one solid chunk. And I like that because it makes them feel and be more honest with things. You know, it makes them more authentic, I feel, because people, when you go and you look at something that's edited heavily, they have this illusion that everything is perfect. And I really don't care for that. Like, some things I can understand editing and, like, cutting and stuff when it actually makes sense, but when it comes to these long plays, I don't really care for editing because I want to be able to show off the mistakes. I want to be able to say, hey, this is what I was dealing with, this is how I overcame this, I died a lot, I wasn't perfect at the game. You know, it's not the best gameplay, it's not a no-hit run, you know, like, I really kind of wanted to hammer home the fact that I am human, I have limitations, I make mistakes. And part of that, I think, is an exercise in breeding acceptance for myself as a human being, you know, because I'm actually kind of hard on myself a fair bit when gaming, you know, like, I'll sit there and be like, oh my god, this sucks, and, you know, I think a lot of people are hard on themselves as well. You know, you go and you look at people and they think that everything has to be perfect all the time. They think that they have to be perfect all the time, and they don't. So when I go and I work on these videos, I leave all the mistakes in. I leave the audio glitches in. I leave the frame rate issues in and stuff for a lot of these SNK games. And I do that because I want to show people, as well as myself, that it is okay to have flaws. It is okay to have limitations. You know, it is okay to be all of these things. I really just wanted a more organic experience instead of this super polished, everything has to be super perfect and shot from certain angles kind of experience that most of YouTube has actually become accustomed to, you know, and it kind of freaks me out a little bit. You know, like, there was another guy who was going and making kind of jokes about it a fair bit because he had a viewer that was very upset that he decided to do what's called a raw cut, which is basically minimal editing and stuff. And so he sat there and this viewer was very upset, and he was like, the quality is not up to your usual standards. And what he didn't realize is the content creator literally, for that particular video, he didn't see the need to run it through like 4 or 5 hours of editing and a bunch of tweaking and tuning, and he just wanted to present it in a raw format. Much like how I go and I present my stuff in a raw format for the most part, just snipping the ends. And so I think as I go and I do these videos, I've come to appreciate the raw format a bit, because with the raw format, it feels like you're actually playing the game. It doesn't feel like a perfect experience. It kind of hammers home the fact that you're human and you're going to make mistakes. And that's how I strongly prefer it, I think. And so I've actually grown quite accustomed to it. I've had this debate many times, where everybody's like, oh, it needs to be super professional, and I just kind of sit down and it's like, you know, I'm kind of happy in my space. You know, as long as I can clean up the ends and stuff and have it just be like a little bit polished in terms of like the glitching that happens at the beginning of the launch of the emulator and stuff. I don't want people with epilepsy to have to go and experience that crap. You know, I'm pretty happy with it. You know, like I'm happy with having an extended raw cut where it's just me going and playing the game and showing the total experience and me dying and fucking up all over the place, and I'm actually happy with that. You know, I haven't really seen a need to change it a little bit, and I'm okay with the criticism that I get about it. I think that people have a very unrealistic standard for YouTube. A lot of people are like, well, everybody else is like this, why aren't you like this? Not everybody has a giant crew to work on their videos. Not everybody has, like, a huge amount of time to go and edit endlessly and stuff, and I work on these videos when I can. You know, and then just not everybody wants that polished look. I think the only thing that I would really love to improve on is maybe be learning to laugh at yourself, woo! But is maybe going and upping the resolution a little bit. You know, I would actually like to up the resolution at some point, because the standard for that is changing, but I frequently leave it at 720p for various reasons, which I went ahead and covered in another video. Maybe I'll go ahead and link it in the description. I don't know yet. You know, like, there's not really a whole lot that I really want to do with these vids in terms of how they're presented and stuff. I know I want to continue going and doing more games. I know that I want to go and be like, oh, okay, you know, let's go ahead and try out this genre, that genre. You know, I want to dive into other types of arcade cabs as well, you know, via MAME and stuff. Like, I have other avenues that I want to explore, but in terms of how the content is presented, for the most part, I'm actually pretty happy with it. Now, I catch a lot of criticism for my commentaries as well. It's not just the videos that go and get nailed. A lot of people get upset because I go and when I go and do my commentaries, sometimes thoughts aren't firing out correctly, sometimes I stutter, sometimes I repeat words. That's just aphasia whipping my ass, and I think past a certain point I had grown annoyed with it, not because it was happening, but because everybody kind of expected me to go and have this perfect presentation. And I never really cared for it, I don't think. I eventually said to myself, okay, it is okay for me to be like this. If people don't like it, they really just don't have to be here, you know? And so a lot of people got upset because there was this rejection that had taken place, you know, and a rejection of what they felt that the standard should be. You know, and so part of me going and working on these videos is acceptance for myself, acceptance for others. You know, trying to go and make videos accessible and, you know, hammer home the human element, I think. You know, to show people, because a lot of people these days, when I go and I look at them, like, they have, like, really bad self-esteem issues. They'll be like, I have this disability, and, you know, society says that it's not okay, and that I have to be like this, and in many ways, these videos are a really big fuck you to conformity. Oh, you have a speech impediment, don't do commentary. Fuck you, I'm doing it anyways. Oh, you can't really see that well. Oh, the gameplay's gonna be bad, don't shoot that video. Man, fuck off, I'm gonna do it anyways. You know, I find that when you're disabled and you choose to leave the box, right, that they go and they put you in, that has a tendency to piss people off, because people like to think that you can't do anything. Like, when I first lost my vision, everybody was like, your life is over. And so for the first 2 years, I believed that shit. I was like, oh my god, I can do nothing. I cannot cook, I cannot clean. I can no longer look at high quality porn. Oh my god, what is my life coming to? And then eventually, after 2 years, I had plenty of time, essentially, to sit down and think about it. You know, and I was like, is this really it? Is this going to be my life? And so these videos are much like the rest of my life, where I had literally progressively started to crawl out of my shell. And because I got tired of it, like, I think past a certain point as a disabled human being, you get tired of being told, hey, you can't do this. You know? And so I literally said, okay, I'm not only going to do this, I'm going to try to be decent at it. And so as a blind person, you know, I think I kind of shocked a lot of people because I was like, I'm going to learn to cook, I'm going to learn to clean, I'm going to learn how to navigate without a cane, using nothing but just my my hearing, essentially. I'm going to go and I'm going to learn how to navigate well, and I'm still going to try to treat people well while doing it instead of being bitter at how society has a tendency to treat us. And so that was the mentality that I had going into these videos. Now, a lot of the time, you know, when I go into these videos, there is a fair bit of frustration sometimes. You know, when it comes to death and everything else, and oh my god, I'm dying, I'm no longer entertaining, but I think that as these videos go on, I'm becoming better and better at beating that mentality down. Just beating the ever-loving dog shit out of it. I'm getting better and better at telling people to fuck off, essentially. Oh, you shouldn't do this. I no longer give a shit, okay? And it's nice because I feel that as this process goes on, I can be myself more and more. And I'm hoping that when I go and I do these videos, I'm hoping that another disabled person that is currently experiencing the same goddamn issue can look at these videos and be like, yeah, this trans person is literally going and struggling with this. Everybody told them to not do it, but, you know, she's going off and she's doing it anyway. And I'm really hoping that at some point somebody looks at it and has this realization and incorporates the mentality of fuck it into their life. Because once you learn to just say fuck it, you're gonna do it, fuck it, you're gonna conquer it, life becomes so much better. Like, nothing really slows you down, like, at all. Like, there's literally nothing. You know, like, everybody kind of sits there and, like, they want you to go and just kind of relax and be like, hey, you have these limitations now, but human beings are literally built to adapt and overcome things. That is why we are the dominant species on the planet, because we adapt, evolve, and survive, and in many ways, these videos exhibit this. You know, adaptation is the best thing you can do for yourself. Learn to say no, learn to say fuck you, and learn to adapt, and you pretty much have life set. That's all you gotta do. You know, and it's just a hell of a thing. It really is. Like, I get frustrated, I think, sometimes with a lot of people that are able-bodied and stuff. You know, they sit there and they're like, oh, I'm sorry that you can't see. Bitch, don't be fucking sorry for me. Yeah, I may not be able to see, but it doesn't mean I'm fucking dead. Life does go on, you know, and I hate that shit. Like, there's this overwhelming amount of fucking pity for the disabled, and what they don't realize is we can still do shit. We have to do it in different methods. Like, I compensate hardcore for my vision with so much technology that it's unreal, but I can still bridge the gap. And so I hate this pity mentality that modern society has. Oh, feel bad for them. They're disabled. And feeling bad for people does nothing. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I know that people think that they're being nice, kind, whatever when they do that shit, but to be honest with you, it doesn't really do anything productive. It really doesn't. When you start wallowing in pity, life effectively stops. When you stop choosing to advance, life effectively stops. You know, and so it's like, okay, when you're disabled, you're given two options. You can either wallow in it, or you can work to improve it. Don't make my mistake, I wallowed in it. For like 2 years straight, I was angry. I was so fucking pissed with shit. I was like, I can't do this, I can't do that. And you know, after I kind of grew up and matured a little bit, I realized, okay, life's not over. I'm still sucking air. I gotta do something, you know, and so I focused on the basics, I think. You know, the basics that everybody said that I couldn't do. You cannot cook, you cannot dress yourself. I simplified my wardrobe. I dress all in black. Most of it is t-shirts and jeans. And normally I'm caught wearing boots. When people said that I can no longer take photos because my vision is way too short to be doing that, I stopped using mechanical sights and I went over to a digital screen because it shortens the focal length needed for my eye to actually go and look at it. And so I go and I take photos. Granted, I have to bridge it with technology, but I'm still doing it. And people, for the most part, love my photos. When people said that I couldn't cook, I said, you know what, we're gonna do it anyways. If I burn the house down, I burn the house down, you know. I had that prime goblin energy going on, and I made the choice to actually go and start cooking. The biggest issues that I had was literally cutting things up, because sometimes I would accidentally cut my hands. But as time went on, I got better and better at it, and now I don't cut my hands at all. Now, granted, my fingers are all scarred still, all to high hell. But the only thing those scars tell me is that, hey, you lived, you learned, more or less. So it's really, you know, like it's definitely an energy, I think, to literally say to hell with it, I'm going to go ahead and do it anyways. It definitely is an energy. And I feel that as somebody that's disabled, you have to carry this energy, because if you don't, it'll just crush your ass. You know, like, you can't really afford to pity yourself. You can't really afford to just go and make excuses on why you can't advance. You know, those that can frequently do. So it's just one thing that I just kind of sat down and I was like, okay, we're going to be doing this. You know, it may not be perfect, but we are doing this. And so I've kind of made strides to go and do it. And I'm hoping that I can inspire other disabled people to kind of not accept the pity standard that society has, or the your life is over standard. And I hope that, you know, they can go and reject that and do things like this. You know, I had somebody that I inspired last week. Dude's missing a leg, was told that he would never do a marathon. He sat there and wrapped up his fucking first marathon from Sierra Vista to Bisbee. Very fucking proud of him. You know, you just have to be willing to get up and say, fuck it, I'm gonna do this shit. You know. It's just really a hell of a thing, I think. You know, it really just is a hell of a thing. You know, I love doing these vids. I understand that they're not flawless. I understand that I got hitches in my speech and stuff. I understand that, you know, I'm gonna be dying left and right. I'm gonna be missing enemies. I understand all this crap. The thing is, though, is I just don't fucking care. I'm doing it because I enjoy it. I'm doing it because I want to show people it can be done. I'm doing it as a very staunch middle finger to anybody that ever told anybody that they couldn't do something. You know, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm getting my ass blown up every 5 seconds, being awful at these games, to show people that with perseverance, you can do it. Arcade games are brutal. These are not like console games. Console games will hold your hand a fair bit. Arcade games will not. You will be punished. Over and over again. You will not have your hand held. You will look damn bad while doing it, too. And yet, you can make the choice to just keep doing it. Now, granted, you could say fuck it and give up, but that doesn't really do anything. You know, it's counterproductive, and, you know, quitting in general is just kind of a bad mentality to have. Now, on some things, it's okay to quit, but, you know, when you go and you choose to quit out of frustration, you're more or less taking a loss at that point. I can understand quitting if, like, you come across a point in the game where there is realistically no way to progress, right? Like, I had other shmups that I was doing in a couple of other unmarked cartridges, and the thing is every time I would die, it would restart the whole level. And with those, like, every time I would do, like, either a death or a continue, like, deaths would restart that section of the level, which normally was really lengthy. And then going and continuing would just restart that entire level. And so there were certain points where I literally couldn't see jack shit, so I had to literally go down and go and look at the footage and be like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to progress past this point. It's okay to accept some limitations. You know, it is okay to literally sit there and be like, realistically, there is no way to progress, but you shouldn't really be going and quitting just out of raw frustration if you can help it, you know? Like, if you can't do that game, that's fine. There's other games to do. Like, before I started filming this one right here, I was trying to go and do another shmup. And it was panning out awfully. Like, it was the second level. I was having to redo entire segments. I couldn't progress. And, you know, it's a very, very frustrating experience. But past a certain point, I was like, you know, I realistically can't do this, and that's okay. There are always other games. So, with that thought in mind, you know, I wanted to... I know that this is very off the cuff, you know, but the commentary went into the weeds, and that's okay. I like to do it raw. So, with that thought in mind, we're going to go ahead and wrap this commentary up while I go and finish off this boss here. I really like this design. It was just so goddamn cool. And we're going to go ahead and we have more videos in production, and by we, I, well, mean me, more or less. They're already on their way down the pike and stuff, and I hope that you guys stick around so you can check them out. And until next time, I hope that you're doing well. I hope you're enjoying your day. I hope people are treating you well, and take care.